Welcome to the latest edition of Venue Visionaries. My name is Gil Freed,
And I'm Matthew Castel.
and we're glad to see everyone today. It's in the middle of summertime, and that means it's baseball season. And when we start taking a look at baseball season, uh, first thing that comes to people's mind might be apple pie, might be a beer at the ballpark. In fact, some people could have multiple beers at a ballpark, and they might not be legal in terms of the ability to actually purchase or consume alcohol on the premise. And that is something that we have seen in Pittsburgh. There was a news story in early May of 2025 where Kevin Markwood, a 20-year-old, fell 21 feet over a 36-inch high railing at PNC Park. He was celebrating a hit by a Pittsburgh Pirate batter. He jumped up in excitement. We still know all the facts of what's going on. So this is all that we know right now. While he was jumping up, he fell over the railing. He fell, as says, 21 feet. He suffered a broken neck and clavicle. It was all over video, all over the news. A very sad incident. They're trying to figure out exactly what happened. But this is not the first time that someone has fallen over the railing at a sport or entertainment venue. Do you want to give us a couple of examples of that, Matt?
Yeah, I think there was a similar example in the Texas Rangers game back in 2011, and that happened over the center field fence where Josh Hamilton, one of the Rangers outfielders, and you've seen this at every game, and it's a nice thing to do, is they throw balls to the fans as a little souvenir. And Shannon Stone reached for the ball, fell over. Hit the field and unfortunately died. And his son witnessed it, which is just as horrific as it is. It makes it twice as bad. And his last words were, "Please check on my son." So it's just one of those tragic situations that happens that no stadium or sports facility ever wants to happen. But unfortunately, from time to time, it has happened. The Washington Commanders also had a railing collapse at FedEx Field during a post-game celebration where fans were injured. And then at the Ottawa Senators of the NHL, a fan fell from the third level of their arena, tripping near a 26-inch ceiling. So it happens, and it's one of those things that you try to prevent, but unfortunately, there's some real world incidents where these tragedies have happened.
I've handled a number of these cases, primarily at concert venues, but also at sport facilities as well. And part of it is going back to the building code. Uh, I don't know of a single stadium, arena, whatever, that is in violation of the building code. The question is the building code adequate and appropriate based upon the usage? So there was in 1929, the building code allowed for a 26-inch high railing for what was called the line of sight exemption. So that means that when you sit down, you don't want to have something where there's going to be a railing right in front of you. Now, this was designed for dinner theaters. So you're watching Lawrence Welk, you're eating your meal, having a good time, watching it. It wasn't meant for stadiums necessarily where you're going to have people that are going to be drunk, turning around, high-fiving their neighbor, jumping up with excitement, maybe dancing an entire concert without ever sitting down really. Wasn't really designed for that. And so there's been a lot of controversy about this over the years. OSHA, as an example, says that if there's any elevation over 30 inches high, and now we're talking about things that are, 30, 40 feet up in the air. If it's 30 inches high, according to OSHA, you need to have a 42-inch high barrier. And the reason why you do that is because of center of gravity. When someone is taller, they need a higher center of gravity. And 26 inches is not enough to protect the center of gravity for most people. Now, if you're 6'5" or something like that, you need even more. And that's why a lot of places such as like the UK in their green guide, they mandate that the minimum it can be is 31 and a half inches. So it's about 5.5 inches more than what is done in the United States. And then the EU standard, they have typically 39 to 42 inches with reinforced material. And part of that is that if you're leaning against it, that it will not collapse against you. Part of this is looking at the center of gravity issue. And then if you take a look at when you're standing up and where 26 inches would be to you is a pretty significant concern. For a 6 foot tall person, a 26-inch railing sits below the hips. That enables forward tipping, that you can tip forward. I'm trying to demonstrate that for those that are listening to the podcast. They're seeing me do my best tipping imitation. It probably isn't the best, but for those that are watching it on video, you saw me trying to tip forward. And then part of that is also a force load issue if you have people behind you that are pushing. Now, one of the things that you see at some stadiums is they have at the end of a stairway, they have a higher glass partition than the other parts of the partition. And that's according to building code. You have to have a higher level at the end of a stairway compared to what you might have in a normal area where you might have people sitting down. But those are just some of the codes that are out there and gives us some idea. ESPN did a survey back in 2011. Only 10 of the 30 MLB teams responded, and the railing height ranged from 26 to 36 inches at these venues. After the Shannon Stone issue in Texas, they raised the railing around the park to 42 inches, which I think is a much safer height than you might have at 26 inches, or at the time of Mr. Stone's incident, theirs was 33 inches tall. What do you think are some solutions to this issue, Matt? Because we do have, at least we know of, facts of this happening. So, what should we be doing? What are some strategies maybe to look at going forward and not just say, hey, look at, we comply with the building code? Because even if you comply with the building code, you want your venue as safe as possible for everyone that's there. That's the goal of facility management, is safety. And if we know people might not be safe for whatever reason, it might be their own stupidity, or maybe they're drinking, maybe they can't control themselves, whatever it is, we accept all the fans as we get them. We have no control over that. We just have to try to make it as safe as possible from what we can control. So, any ideas, any thoughts?
It's a real problem because, like you mentioned, if you put the railing too high, now it's in the spectator's eyesight. So, what kind of solutions can you come up with? At a lot of venues, they'll put glass or plexiglass above the railing so the fan can still see through it. That's one solution that helps. Uh, and you may want to consider on the vendor aisles, the places where vendors and fans walk down to get to their seats, because they're on their feet, they're higher than you would be of sitting, that have higher railings there because it's easier to tumble over, and put the glass partitions there as well to give yourself more coverage. Some sports facilities have taken to putting up little league netting, so if you tumble over there's at least a safety feature there. And I think the other things you can do is, we had a previous podcast on preventative maintenance and repair. In our suites, for instance, at Oriole Park, we have railing. We have a biannual inspection where we have one of our people go check, shake the railing, see if there's any cracking, to make sure that there's not going to be a situation where somebody leans on it and, heaven forbid, the structure gives way. So that's important as well, to do that preventive maintenance. Or if you get a report from an usher, a fan, that says, hey, the railing in front of me is loose, don't put that on the back burner and say, well, we'll get to that at the end of the season. That's one of those pieces of preventative maintenance, or maintenance that needs to happen right away. I think by doing that, you can hopefully improve the odds a little bit in your favor.
Yeah, we were discussing this before the show, and we were looking at some of the different things. The glass barrier is one, and they have it at a number of different facilities where they go from 36 to 42 inches in height. Dynamic load testing, you just mentioned that, where people can be shaking it and trying to see whether or not it will jostle loose. I remember at RFK Stadium, Washington, D.C., where they had chunks of the stadium falling down at times. You don't want to have that when you might have people up in the grandstands and they're leaning forward trying to be excited and it collapses on them. Tech integration, you might see that where they have what's called a proximity sensor, where it tells people, hey, back up, you're getting too close to it. Um, Over the railing netting has been installed at certain venues. I know I've seen it in Boston at Fenway Park. They also have it in Seattle for the Mariners, where if you were to fall over, there's netting there to catch you. You see this sometimes at like Top Golf and places like that. It's a strategy. Uh, Zoned safety, higher railing in high risk areas, such as front row or standing room areas that you might have. Maybe we have to look at revising the building codes, or maybe we might need the leagues coming forward and saying, this is what we think you need to do, similar to what Major League Baseball did with extending the netting to protect fans from foul balls. Maybe this would be something that they could take a look at. Maybe a public awareness campaign, making sure people understand what's going on, where they have to be located, and where might be a not as safe area. Um, Mandatory inspection, public awareness. We talked about that. Anything else that you could think of that might be a strategy going forward? Because we can say all that we want. It's going to be an issue of maybe the courts or maybe the teams or the leagues, other people beyond us who will dictate what's going to happen in the future.
I think you gave a pretty good list, but one other thing I would suggest has nothing to do with building codes or structural elements that could help is just what a lot of sports facilities do are monitoring the alcohol intake of their customers. I would imagine if you went through a list of all the incidents of people falling over railings over the course of 20 years, that there'd be a decent percentage of those that the people may have had too much to drink. So if you can tackle that issue on the front end, which is hard to do, but it could pay dividends not just there, but in other areas as well, fights, all the things that come with alcohol abuse.
If only people drank responsibly, but that would apply to a lot of different things with drunk driving, intoxicated behavior this way or that way, whatever it might be. So, this is just an interesting topic because it's in the news. Just like back in 2011 when you had the Shannon Stone incident, that was the biggest story at that time for the news. So right now we have this story. We can add some additional elements to that. For example, as I said from the very beginning, the person was under age 21. He shouldn't have had any alcohol. So his friend who helped buy two of the beers for him and is over the age of 21, he is now being charged with providing alcohol to somebody else who's a minor. So when we start taking a look at it, if you are someone going to a facility, you have to look at responsible alcohol consumption and distribution as well, and not make any bad decisions that are going to hurt you, because it might be hurting not just you, somebody else that you might really love or cherish or just enjoy their company at a ball game, that they might end up injuring themselves with no fault of their own, possibly. And, is it going to be a stadium arena that's going to be the responsible party for it? People always try to go after a deep pocket if they have that opportunity. And if the deep pocket is responsible, then it's appropriate. And then the deep pocket is one that's possibly going to have to pay a large settlement or a jury decision. And that's why monitoring this is important for us. I don't know where we're going to go with this as an industry. It has happened way too frequently. And maybe it's now going to be an issue similar to the foul ball, where they're going to increase uh, the railing, but do it in a responsible manner that doesn't impede the sight lines everyone thought when Major League Baseball was extending the netting that it was going to hurt the game. People aren't going to be able to see it. I think after a little bit, and tell me if I'm wrong, Matt, that you get used to it and you can see the game pretty well. Maybe you don't have that direct interaction with the players that you might have had in the past, but if there's a screeching line drive foul ball, people are going to be safer. And if it's a pop up, people can still bring their gloves and catch it. So maybe that's where we're going. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, on the foul ball protection, yeah, I'm sure there was a lot of concern when they first extended it that season ticket holders and fans wouldn't like because it'd be impeding their view. Um, Personally, when I sit behind the net, your mind erases the net pretty quick and you don't even notice it. And from what I understand, Major League Baseball teams got next to no complaints from fans about the extended netting. So it was an issue that really wasn't an issue.
And so maybe that might be the issue with railing that. We might think that it will scare some people or hurt their line of sight. But if it makes things safer for people, maybe they're not even going to notice it that it happened. And then we've made things safer for everyone out there. Um, so my question, and we come to the point where we get to ask, a question of the audience for them to consider and for them to discuss. Um, I'm trying to think of what would be the best question. Uh, and I think part of it is, has anyone ever felt um, like they might fall at a stadium or arena or some other place? And have they ever thought of what could be possible solutions for that? Um, and so this goes to a wide variety of different issues. And we're going to cover those when we come back because we want to know if you have addressed those issues. So we'll be right back in a second with an answer to those questions. All right, welcome back, everyone. We hope you've had a chance to think about the question that we asked. Matt, let's throw it at you. How would you answer that question about what would you do if you were faced with this challenge of the safety for people that might be um, not prone, but might unfortunately be in a situation where they might fall over a railing or something like that?
Well, you have to one be conscious of your strengths and weaknesses, and do the things that you need to do to be responsible. We mentioned not using alcohol. If you're on a medication that may make you dizzy, just be aware of that. And maybe not sit in the front row. Choose a seat where you're not sitting in the front row where you can tumble over. I'll tell you one that I see a lot that people don't think about is be aware of your circumstances and situations of where you are and wear the proper footwear. For example, maybe you don't wear really large high heels if you're going to a baseball game or a football game, unless you're sitting in the club or suite level, because you're going downstairs and that is not the time when you're approaching the railing going downstairs where you lose your balance. On rainy days, maybe if you're a man, you don't wear shoes, you wear sneakers instead, and same with the women, so you can grip. So you're going down a wet aisle that you're not going to slip forward and go over. So just be aware of your circumstances and situations and your strengths and weaknesses and plan accordingly.
Uh, and it's hard to throw things back at the customer, but the customer has to be cognizant of what's going on around them as well. Are you wearing flip flops? Are you with young kids? There was an incident in a Staples Center where a young kid, I think 2-year-old, climbed onto the ledge and then fell over and died. That's the kind of thing that as facility managers, we can take steps and we need to take steps to make sure we have as safe of a venue as possible. But the customers also have to be aware of their surroundings. Are they wearing lots of jackets? Are they with elderly people? Things like that. All those different kind of variables can come into play. And if you don't feel safe, maybe it's upon you to be able to tell someone like an usher that, look, I don't feel safe here. Is there another area where we could sit where it might be safer? No, at least this is my opinion. I don't think there's going to be any ushers going to say, no, you suffer over there and stay there. They're going to try to find some kind of solution for you. And that requires you to speak up. So if you see something, say something. The same thing in this kind of context. If something doesn't feel right, if you feel that you might have a dizzy spell and that you could fall down the steps, tell someone, try to move, try to do something to improve the situation. Uh, we're not the insurers of safety, and you can't insure the safety of everyone at a venue. But if you know that there are risks, you have to take reasonable precautions to try minimizing that risk. And fans have to take precautions to make sure they don't increase the risk that they might impose upon themselves and others. Any last words, Matt?
No, I think that's a good list. And again, personal responsibility is always great, and it's a real issue that no sports venue wants any of their customers to get hurt or have this sort of have these tragedies happen. So just please take care.
Please take care. That's a wonderful way of saying it. Everyone, be safe out there. This is Gil Fried signing off. Thank you for listening.
And this is Matthew Costello. Thank you very much.
And everyone, stay safe out there. Bye bye.